Steven, when you're thinking about the crypto industry within the past year, I feel like before that, if you wanted to learn about crypto, you would have to go seek out that news. But within the past months, there have been headlines that have dominated the news cycle, like the fallout of FTX, the fall of crypto friendly banks, and it hasn't really been a good look for the industry. So, what did these collapses teach us, do you think?
I think what these collapses teach us, I mean, it's an interesting way to put it. Uh, the crypto enthusiast, the crypto maximalist will say that a lot of these collapses are essentially traditional financial participants bringing in traditional financial problems into this new financial world. And because they'll argue FTX was a centralized company, Three Arrows Capital, a fallen hedge fund, a centralized company, BlockFi, Celsius, Voyager, those are I guess, were brokers and lending platforms that operate in a manner akin to banks. Then, if you look at like Silicon Valley Bank and now First Republic and Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank, I mean those all fell and those were traditional banks. And some lessons that are being drawn there kind of go back to 2008 when Bitcoin was first created, and it kind of reminded everybody why they believe there is a need for a scarce digital asset that is not beholden to regulators and more centralized entities. But and that's why I think you've seen Bitcoin peak up over the last couple of weeks or so, poke its head above 30,000, even though I think it's a bit down today. And so all of these different narratives are floating around in the space. Ultimately, though, I think it's hard to draw one or two big conclusions because there's always going to be this push and pull between having like a decentralized utopia, which is what the most the I guess the crypto Puritans want, for lack of a better word, and then I think that the natural centralizing forces that kind of go into how regulations happen, how companies operate, and it's really you're going to have to again like thread the needle or find that balance between like how decentralized is decentralized enough, how centralized is necessary for companies to grow, and where does crypto fit into that? I have a feeling that there's going to be a spectrum where it's not just a one size fits all or some sort of binary choice, and we're going to keep just seeing. I believe we're going to keep seeing issues like this develop. I mean, back in 2008, the real goal was to make sure that the globally systemic banks were the too big to fails could no longer fail. And the belief was that the smaller regional lenders in Silicon Valley and First Republic were not small by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, here we are, where these more esoteric regional banks that were just catering to the extreme wealthy literally put the entire global banking sector in peril. So I think, and what I'm trying to say here, it's always hard to know. You solve for the problem that just happened. It's hard to anticipate what the future problem is. And I think crypto and the traditional finance world are going to keep entangling and disentangling themselves in and out of these crises. Again, I guess it's probably incumbent upon regulation to help try to set the rules of the road so that when situations do arise, they don't become systemic, and that there are clearer pathways forward.
I do want to talk about those rules of the road and regulations. When it comes to both Democrats and Republicans, are both parties on the same wavelength of regulations? I know the GOP usually, historically, has wanted limited government regulation, but aside from that, where are we?
That's a good question too, because for a while, crypto seemed to be one of those issues, along with, I guess, China bashing, that sort of brought unanimity among Congress. Both parties seem, at least certain members within both parties, seem to be interested in moving innovation forward and ensuring that the United States is sort of like the main hub or domicile for crypto development. I did see a bit of a different perspective, though, in the past couple of weeks. About 2 weeks ago, SEC Chair Gary Gensler, as one of his regularly scheduled appearances in front of the House Financial Services Committee, came to testify, and there was a pretty stark difference between the Democratic and Republican lines of questioning. The Democrats pretty much went after him when the conversation did talk about crypto, which did take up most of the time, but there were also other discussions about the pace of issuing rules and guidance and ESG issues, which aren't privy to or aren't part of this conversation. But when it did go to crypto, the Democrats hit him pretty hard against not stopping the FTXs and really questioning what is the value of this industry, where they pejoratively sort of call it something akin to just a dream for criminals and illicit actors and gambling for lack of a better term. And then on the Republican side, they really were going after Gensler for not giving clear guidance. I think that this was punctuated at the very beginning of his hearing when Patrick McHenry, the chair of the committee, spent almost his entire 5-minute Q&A period with Chair Gensler trying to get him to admit whether or not Ether, the native token of the Ethereum blockchain, is a security, and Gensler kept demurring. And this asset's important because after Bitcoin, it's the biggest asset in the world, digital asset in the world. It's been around now for the better part of 8 years. And a few years ago, someone at the SEC that actually said in a speech that he believed that Ethereum had evolved enough and had become sufficiently decentralized to no longer qualify as a security under the Howey test, which is based on a 90-year-old court ruling. One of the key factors that goes into whether or not a particular offering is a security or an investment contract is if there's an expectation of profit based on the actions of a centralized group of people or an individual purpose. So if an asset is not centralized, then by definition it cannot be a security, and Gensler would not answer that question. So I think that just really kind of speaks to the divide right now, where Democrats are looking at this from a consumer protection point of view, and they kind of see it as a way to win points with the electorate by going after schemers that are looking to take advantage of well-intentioned investors. And the Republicans are worried that domains such as the European Union and China, who's developing a digital yuan, are going to take advantage and get a first mover advantage in this newer industry, while the U.S. appears to be asleep at the wheel.